Hi and welcome to the Malat cookery channel. So today we're going to be planting some fruit and veg in the garden. So a little bit of an important announcement first regarding the Malat cookery channel. So that's going to stay with recipes, anything to do with recipes, and also the Malat range of products. Anything to do with new build projects regarding DIY or projects for the garden, build projects for the garden, are actually going to move over to my other channel, which is Man Cave Projects. So hopefully with that split, we're going to keep both of those channels on message. So the Malat cookery channel to do with cooking recipes, and also the Malat spice range, and the Man Cave Projects channel to do with new build projects, both in the home regarding DIY and also around the garden as well. With regard to the existing pizza oven project, which has been featured on the Malat cookery channel for some time, that's going to stay with that channel, but that will phase out over time, and then any new build to do with the pizza ovens will be over on the Man Cave Projects channel. So a link to the Man Cave Projects channel will be in the description below. So the first thing we're going to do today is I'm going to be planting some vegetable seeds in our vegetable garden, our container vegetable garden. Now this is made from an old pallet. So if you just click in the top right hand corner of the screen now, that link will take you to the Man Cave Projects video that covers how to make one of these. So this is obviously a very inexpensive way of producing a small container garden. Now it does look a little bit unsightly. You can actually hide this maybe with a border of railway sleepers or something similar. This is ideal though for container growing, because with it being a pallet, you have these strips of wood across the surface of it, which means that you've got some nice tidy rows for the veg, and also very little with regard to weeding, because there's very little can grow other than the actual vegetable seeds that you're planting. So in here is some vegetable compost, which is quite rough. I've got our packets of seeds which I bought from Lidl. I think they were about 60p each, so very cheap indeed. I've got some onion, some beetroot, carrot and lettuce. And one thing I'm going to do is, obviously I'm mindful of how the lettuce will grow and expand, so we'll probably do lettuce on the outside, and then maybe onion, beetroot and carrot or something similar, and then another row of lettuce again. So the first thing we're going to plant is the lettuce. So I've opened up the lettuce pack, and this particular type of package is actually in these tissue strips. So the way these work is you just tear off the strip you need, and the actual lettuce seeds are actually impregnated into the tissue. If you hold up to the light, you can actually see the lettuce seeds. So the first thing we need to do is use an old scrap piece of wood just to press that run down. We lay our tissue strip, which contains the lettuce seed in the tissue, just like that. I may actually just double that up. Like I say, if you hold this up to the light, you can see where the actual seeds are. And then instead of putting the vegetable compost over the top, because it is quite rough, because these are seeds, I'm going to lay some normal, just general purpose or all purpose compost over the top. And that's our first run of lettuce done. And so I'm just going to repeat that for the second part. So second row in, I'm just going to do carrots. Same process as before, just flatten down the compost. So these carrots are just more conventional loose seeds within the packet. And then we just want to sprinkle these in at regular intervals on both sides. Again, good covering with our our all-purpose compost. And then we'll just move on to the next one, probably beetroot in this, and then onion, and then back to lettuce, and we'll just carry on until the whole container garden is full. So once all the seeds are planted and all labelled up, the last thing to do is just to give the seeds a good watering and then watch them grow. So the next job is to plant our Aldi plug plants into the greenhouse. Just a word about this wooden frame. So this growing method that I've covered before but I'll show you again today is so successful that the tomato plants were so heavy that they snapped even the strongest canes that are placed in. So this year I've got the addition of this wooden frame placed into the bed, and hopefully that will act as reinforcement for the plants, obviously when they get bigger and the trusses start to fill with tomatoes. So these are said with the Aldi plug plants. If you click in the top right hand corner of the screen now, that link will take you to the video where I cover how to grow on plug plants from the supermarket. As you can see, it's been really successful. These have just been sat in a tray on a windowsill with the occasional watering. So with regard to this growing system, again I'll cover it again in this video. So what we've actually got is a prepared bed of old compost on the floor of the greenhouse. There's about 8 to 10 centimetres of compost in there. And the tomato plants are actually grown in buckets, but the bucket has the entire bottom of the bucket taken off. I'm going to fill this now with good quality compost and then obviously plant the tomato plant in there. And what happens is the tomato plant roots are able to grow not only down into the bottom of the bucket, but straight through the bucket and into this compost bed. Because the root system is so deep, the plant becomes extremely healthy, and the amount of tomatoes you get from each plant are just phenomenal. Again, last year we got over 50 kilos of tomatoes off the plants, and this is a method I've been using for a number of years now, and it's worked every single year. So the next step for us to do now is just to fill each one of these buckets with compost. So once all of the containers are filled with the compost, I've then used the garden hose and just drenched each one of the buckets and left the compost for about an hour so that water can drain all the way through. I prefer to do it that way, to water the bucket that way, than to water it after the new plants have gone in. The reason for that is these are still quite fragile, and even just a watering can damage the stems. So initially, while they take hold and establish themselves in the buckets, I'd rather water the compost before they actually go in. As well as the plants, we've got canes. As you can see, these are quite tall, these plants, and again still a bit fragile, so I'm going to stake them and then I prefer these kind of ties. I've been using these for years, so these are used time and time again every year. And I'm obviously going to support the plant as much as possible as it starts to grow. So the way to transplant them, make a hole in the centre of the bucket. So I'm going to make this hole deeper than the actual depth of the compost in the tray, because I want to cover this first couple of centimeters of tomato plant. If you don't do that, the root system can actually develop from this bottom part of the plant, and that will be uncovered once the plant starts to grow, and then you'll only have to put some compost up around the plant to protect that anyway. So then we take our tomato plant very carefully. Try not to disturb the root system too much. Again, that drops into the hole a couple of centimeters in, and just very gently just firm that plant in place. And we take one of our canes, again about a centimetre away from the plant. Try and get that as vertical as possible, and again the other good thing about this system is that cane can go not just through the actual bucket compost but into the prepared bed as well, and that just makes it a lot more sturdy. And then take one of our ties, and where you see one of the leaves come out, this tie needs to go just underneath that, on the strongest part of the plant, so not too high up. And as well as that, just make sure there's a little bit of gap so that the plant isn't tight against the cane, so it's got enough room to actually grow. Again, the only thing we want to do here is just to support the plant as much as possible, like that. Carry on obviously and just do the rest of the plants. So personally, I think cooking and gardening, especially growing some of your own food, go hand in hand. Making a meal from scratch is very satisfying, but making a meal from scratch with food that you've grown from scratch is even more satisfying. Please subscribe to the channel, and as usual, if you've enjoyed this particular video, hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.